I want to talk a little bit about your career then in as a software developer. I know you've worked at multiple firms. So maybe if you could tell us a little bit about what was that process like year by year for you as growing as a software developer, and also maybe touch on some of the technologies that you were working on.
Sure, absolutely. So I started in 2015, Barclays Investment Bank. I think there I was in the tech team, Barclays credit card team. My team used to basically work with the credit card team of Barclays in US. So I think mostly my work was with Spring Java, making backend APIs and stuff like that. So that was the starter for me into the tech world. And I think at the very start only I fell in love with it. I think to be able to build APIs, that entire thing, I really love that. But it also involves a lot of logic into the picture. You have to put up your brains every day. And so I think I've learned a lot. I would say I spent 2.5 years there. And I would say that was a phase where I learned a lot. I think then in the tech industry is very common also that if you want to, let's say, because if you just be in one team, it will just take you like, let's say, a year or so to master that. Then after that, it's like the same work every day, right? So to basically be able to equip yourself with different domains, different technologies, it's always advised to look at new firms or maybe new teams in the same org itself. So in Barclays, one of the problems that we had was we couldn't change our team very easily. So this is where I basically went on to have to be in some other companies. I joined Goldman Sachs in Bangalore back in 2017. I think there GS is a great organization, but at least the team I was in was very hectic. My work-life balance was very screwed up. So unfortunately, I left the firm, let's say, in 9 months. It's not that I'm saying every team is like that, but my team was very high pressure. We were into the equity platform itself. And one problem that I saw that rather than me actually honing my skills in the tech world, I was able to learn a lot about investment, financial, let's say, terms and stuff like that, which was not something I was very until the point I joined GS, maybe I thought, okay, eventually maybe I'll do, let's say, MBA in finance or something. But there, I think I got my lesson that I'm not good at it and I won't be able to pursue, because half of the time I was spending my time just to understand the jargons that they were saying on the call. Like, you go into the call for 15 minutes and you don't understand anything. So I was at that one website, Investopedia, was always on my laptop. So then I think after 6 months into it, I realized that I'm opening Investopedia more than, let's say, Stack Overflow, right? Which is not a right sign for a techie guy. So this is where I think I thought, okay, I have to move away from it. And I think this is where, let's say, my first experience was like Barclays. I was able to build a lot of new things, new projects from scratch. So that was a good experience, but I never built some project which worked at scale, right? So it was something we had very bunch of people, like thousands of people or 50,000 people. So I think to actually be able to build something on scale, I think you have to join a firm like that. So I think that the next aim was that only, to be in some kind of a setup where my, let's say, application is being used by millions of people. So this is where my third company was Walmart.com. That was e-commerce, right? Now, e-commerce, we all know there's a lot of traffic. You have to really be able to build scalable system, distributed system. So there I worked for 3.5 years. I had a wonderful experience there. I think I would say all the major knowledge I feel I got was actually working hands-on there. And I was lucky. I joined a team. It was very small. We were like 4 or 5 people. And the point when I left it, we were like 45 people. So I think even I was there when we built the entire team, both in India and US. So I think that entire experience, and we saw our projects being there on your laptop and local host running and then being used by millions of people. So that feeling of it was pretty awesome. And yeah, we made a lot of mistakes, a lot of architectural mistakes, I would say. But yeah, we learned by our mistakes, worked a lot. But I think, yeah, it was a great experience overall there. So these were the 3 companies that I worked. And mostly my work was into Spring, Java, backend, you name it all. If you build the distributed system, you have to be with messaging system, Kafka. We use very extensively, Redis cache, Hazelcast cache. These are distributed caches we had to use extensively. So yeah, I think these were the things that I was very actively. And then, of course, you have to deploy your code on, let's say, AWS, Azure, So I think these kind of stuff also, you actually gain a lot of knowledge once you be in such companies who are working at scale. So I think that was a great advantage for me. And then my fourth company, once I spent the 3.5 years, I think again I was in a state where I was not learning anything new. And I always feel the point when you stop feeling that when you open your laptop, you don't learn anything by the end of the day. I think that's the point where you can start making your next move also. So I think then I stumbled upon with the opportunity to join Microsoft. Now, Microsoft it's not just a firm, it was also an emotion for me. I remember when I joined the college in first year, I spoke to the first senior I want. So the one advice I've had that he said that if you focus on your studies, you might get into Microsoft. If you don't do anything, you will not get in. So I think Microsoft was like a synonym for the best in our industry, one of the best in our industry. So I always had it in my mind that if once at least I should work with Microsoft as a software engineer. And I think when I stumbled upon the opportunity, I grabbed it. And I've been I think now my experience with Microsoft here. So again, one of the major changes I had to make was, as I mentioned, I always worked on Spring, Java. So my background was usually of Java background. Now Microsoft doesn't really endorse it, right? They use .NET, C#. So it's also a lesson where some people are confused that you have to just be a ninja, let's say, in one tech stack. So even if my entire team, which interviewed me at Microsoft, they also didn't know Java, but all my interviews were in Java. So the focus is never on one tech stack. When you are at some interview, it's mostly on the concepts. If your concepts are right, you can get into it, even if you don't have the knowledge of the tech stack that they want. So in a company like Microsoft, you get enough time, let's say, to understand the systems. You get 1 month, which is enough to actually understand the system, the tech stack, and then it actually takes time to master the tech itself. So yeah, I think in Microsoft, one of the good things that I felt is that within Microsoft also you can move around very easily, because Microsoft works on so many products, they're varied products, right? So I think within the company, you can have experience of working into any domain that you want, right? So for the first 7 months, I was into Microsoft Outlook team, which is like for emailing and stuff. And that's, they have huge traffic. They have 700 million users, monthly active users, something like that, a huge number. So again, I worked at scale there, learned a lot of things. But then I think this is where one of my interests was that I think 6 years into my life, like a tech career, I was only being a backend engineer. And I think this is where I could see a spark, let's say, trying my luck into front end, also being a full stack engineer. And also the world of React, JavaScript is something that always intrigued me. So I remember the first time I had something on front end was one of the internships I did in college. So I worked in PHP, and it had HTML, CSS, some of the PHP and JavaScript. I completely hated it, because back then building applications like that just with JavaScript itself was very difficult. Front end, on the front end side, was very, if you understand, if somebody understands a bit deep, to, let's say, make a single page application to manage states just with JavaScript was a very harder task to do. So I think in last year, when I actually got exposed to React.js, so after that experience, I thought a front end is not meant for me, it's too difficult. So I completely put up myself into the backend itself. So I think once I got introduced to React, because I wanted to build a project for an NGO, that's where I had to learn something from the front end itself. So my backend was still Java, front end was React. So I think, again, as I mentioned, right, one of the great ways to learn a new technology is to build some project which excites you. So I wanted to build this website for an NGO, and for that I had to learn something. So this is where I learned something about React, and that I fell in love with it. It's pretty simple to do a lot of magical stuff. And as a coder, when you build something in the backend, you can never show for it, right? It's only that you understand. The devs can understand what you built, right? But in front-end domain, it's very easy to visualize what you just built. So that excited me to actually make a move into the front end as well. So I got a good opportunity within Microsoft to actually move to Microsoft team. Microsoft Whiteboard. There's a team called Microsoft Whiteboard, which is Whiteboard is a thing that you can use in Teams also, Microsoft Teams also. So I think this is where their entire UI tech stack is into React, TypeScript, and stuff like that. So it's been 7-8 months I've been associated with this team. I started, I was just an amateur in React. I don't say I'm an expert, but I'm still like every day I'm honing my skills. And yeah, I think the move of the entire technology into JS, I feel is the next big move. I think if you see in JS, there's so many new stuff that's coming up every now. It's not just React. You have Next.js, you have Express.js as Node.js at the backend itself. So I feel it's a tech stack of the future, and it's something which is very, if somebody is in their first year in their college and starting out, right, I think it's the easiest way to actually get into the software world, because just by having grasp of one technology, you would be able to be a full stack engineer. Let's say if you start with Java, you won't be able to do much in front end, right? So you have to learn multiple languages, for example, or multiple tech stacks, which at a younger age is not very easy, right? So I think if you get into JavaScript, that entire meme stack, you completely, the front end, back end, everything is oriented by Java, JavaScript, which makes it easier. So I feel that JS is the future, and you never know. Our industry is very evolving. Actually, you never know what will be the next big sort of thing. But yeah, I think I strongly feel that that's the thing I'm doing.
Not at all. No, great. Thanks a lot for sharing your journey. I think it's very interesting to see that one, just to understand like what growth in the software engineering path looks like. I think you touched on some pretty interesting points there, that you every day, at the end of the day, you should have learned something. I think that's a good takeaway for a lot of people. The other is also that do not think that if you've mastered or if you've been working in one technology for a while that you cannot switch. It's your fundamental skills that really matter, and your skills are transferable to new technologies. And I think the third is definitely, we at Jovian are also really excited about JavaScript and the entire ecosystem. Even at Jovian, so we have a JavaScript front end based on React, and then we have a Python backend. And now we're in the process of taking the parts of the Python backend and moving it into JavaScript, because we just want to have one code base and one single deployment.
Right.
Yeah, and it's becoming really powerful. And the kind of tools, I mean, as you said, that 10 years ago, it was just a headache basically to build anything in JavaScript, but now things are getting so much easier, and so many powerful libraries and tools are coming up. Great. Yeah, it's
into Java, you had so many open source libraries to it, so it was very powerful. Right? I think I see now the same for
JavaScript, right?
And I think the point where you don't really have to have defined backend developers and front end developers, because many of the startup companies can't even afford it, right? They don't have separate. So I think that basically eases the things out. A same person can own the entire module end to end, front end, back end, everything, if they have with this knowledge of React and JavaScript in general. I think that's the power of this. And yeah, I strongly believe that's the future from our logic standpoint.